Ladies and gentlemen, I now call upon Martinkovits, the ACM National Director, to give a presentation. Jai.
And everybody can hear that from here as well? Beautiful. Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the opportunity to address the group. I've been told that we have to keep it fairly brief, so I hope that you can bear with me as I fly through a number of years of ACM's activities to bring you up to speed of the national activities of Australians for constitutional monarchy. So Mr. Kirby, Senator Bernardi, the other members of Parliament and our interstate guests who have made the effort to come here, thank you so much for being a part of this almost relaunch or reinvigoration of the South Australian branch. It's delightful to see so many fresh faces and so many faces that I've seen over a number of years. And thank you so much, Michael Van Dissel, for taking the active role of putting tonight's function together with your committee. I'd like to firstly pass on one further apology from our national convener, Professor David Flint. Unfortunately, David, he is in the country, but only just. He returned from a trip today at about 3 o'clock from Europe, and I'm sure that you can understand how he couldn't quite make it from Sydney to be with us today, but he does, of course, send his very warmest regards and good wishes for tonight's function. So, ACM, I'll just take a moment to remind you of ACMs Mission. I think it's a wonderful mission, and it brings together so many people from so many walks of life. And of course, no doubt he may touch on this later, but Mr. Kirby himself drafted ACM's charter, which is such a wide charter that so many people can be a part of. Our mission is to preserve, to protect and to defend our heritage, our Australian constitutional system, and particularly the role of the Australian Crown within that system. And of course, the one thing that Republicans try to divorce themselves from, but we all know it's one and the same, is the issue of the flag. Have a republic, you can be guaranteed our wonderful Australian flag will be going with our wonderful system. The day of the referendum, 55,000 supporters of Australians for Constitutional Monarchy actively manning booths, coming out to support it. This wasn't a campaign that was run by elites on our side of the debate. This was something that the people felt passionately about. They came out in their numbers. There was a landslide victory with 72% of federal electorates, and as a national majority, of course, in all states, and as a national majority itself. Malcolm Turnbull will tell you that those results were close. I don't see that they were close in the slightest. Where has the debate gone today? 1999 was a very different situation. Today, the support for a republic has consistently declined. Republicans will point out to you individual polls with questionable methods, often using purely online polling to give you an inflated figure. Let me tell you, of course, that the most accurate polls are those in our favour. No, I'm joking. The most accurate polls, of course, are those which are conducted face-to-face or as a minimum over the telephone. And that will tell you now that the most recent, despite the consistent downward trend, 34% for a republic with an elected president, and that's before you tell the people, well, how do you propose to elect the president? So that's going to be further divided, and you can be rest assured of that. I've jumped ahead of myself, which is wonderful because I'm running short on time. What have we been doing over the last few years? It's been a very royal year and a very royal few years. 2010, we had a visit from Prince William. This was just ahead of the royal wedding. I was very fortunate. You can see that good-looking bloke there. Prince William here, Ian Thorpe. It was a barbecue organised by the Premier, and I was extremely fortunate to be invited. It was a wonderful occasion to meet our future king one day. We have then the royal wedding of 2011. That was a wonderful occasion, and of course that attracted the largest television audience in Australian television history. And it does kind of lead me into a topic that I'm going to come to in a moment. But before I get to that, we had the Queen here herself in 2011. We saw amazing crowds, particularly in Perth, but in all of the places where she went. We had 120,000 people in Perth lining the foreshores to get a glimpse of the Queen. The media will tell us, of course, that this was because it was possibly her last visit. I wouldn't put my bet on it being her last visit, but even if it was, I think Australians were extremely warm. They came out in their numbers. We, of course, now come to the Diamond Jubilee. Australians for Constitutional Monarchy, I'll skip that, that tells us how the emblem was designed. It was a competition which was held in the UK, and this particular person here, who was a 10-year-old student called Catherine Duwa from Chester, won that competition, and it's a wonderfully warm logo. Australians for Constitutional Monarchy was absolutely instrumental in ensuring that you could watch the Diamond Jubilee. Our national broadcaster was not going to allow you to see it. You would have had to have either a subscription to pay television. If you were one of the fortunate people who has, say, Sky News, their APAC channel, I think, was to display it. And the ABC tells us that there was to be some highlight package on ABC 24. Everybody has access to ABC One. As soon as we discovered that this wasn't to be displayed, we mounted immediately a national campaign over a course of about 3 days. We had a strong talkback presence to complement that campaign, and many thousands and thousands of people signed that petition. The ABC conceded within 3 days and broadcast the full Diamond Jubilee proceedings, the central events in London, in their entirety. And that was thanks to your hard work, your diligence, and your support of that petition. So thank you very much for those who were involved in that process. We remain a relevant organisation. I've told you that polling now tells us a republic is off the agenda. There's those who are going to agitate for change on the fringes, but let me tell you, it's not happening anytime soon. Why are we relevant? We are relevant in education, which I'll come to in a moment, but we're particularly relevant as well in monitoring for these moves, these republicanism by stealth moves. One particular example that comes to mind was to remove references in the Girl Guides to any references to God or to the Queen. We immediately were on top of that in the media. I can't say that we've managed to reverse that decision, but certainly we've made it extremely clear. And in other cases, we've had these examples of republicanism by stealth reversed, restoring the symbols of the crown to their rightful place, and so on and so forth. We're an extremely proactive organisation. We now have a wonderful education program. We pioneered an earlier education program called CEFA. CEFA, for various reasons, is now unable to focus on the role of the Crown. They do a wonderful job teaching about the Constitution broadly, but they're slightly lacking in that key aspect, and we're filling a crucial gap in that regard. A survey of Year 10 students were asked, what is the Australian Constitution? Anyone in this room would know that is an extremely fundamental question. This was after the Howard government had poured millions into civics education. 4 multiple choice answers. Some people in this room will remember the days before multiple choice, but even with multiple choice, only 1 in 3 students could answer that fundamental question. There is a deficiency, ladies and gentlemen, which Australians for Constitutional Monarchy is addressing. We have our education program, the Crowned Republic. This stems from something which is probably beyond the time that I have to explain here, but until you qualify the word republic, it's, as Humpty Dumpty says, a word means exactly what I want it to mean. No more, no less. And it's like one of those words, another word would be multiculturalism. Until you define, well, I'm talking about this culture, that culture, that culture, the word's meaningless. It holds no meaning in itself. Republic is the same. Simplistic contrast is republic and monarchy. The real life situation is an overlap. We have a crowned republic, and this is a term which, as I have described here, is certainly justified in meaning, but also in usage. This is something which our guest of honour tonight himself has said. Australia is already a form of republic under the Crown, or a crowned republic, and I hope he won't correct me on the exact quote on that. But also from broader perspectives as well, we have Tony Abbott, we have John Howard, have all described Australia in this fashion. So our program is based around that. We have a very, very active presence on the internet. Our primary website, norepublic.com.au, is getting 10, in fact that figure, I haven't updated that slide, it's now 12.5 million page views annually, which is an extremely high exposure by any standard. The more accurate measure, I must admit, is 2 to 3 million, now at 3.5 million page views, which is the number of times somebody's actively loaded a page, which is a very, very impressive site, and we believe it to be the most visited constitutional monarchist site in the world. Our education site, crownedrepublic.com.au, is also receiving significant exposure, and our presence in the social media is now larger than both of the major political parties. We have 35,000, it is now, fans, and 50% of those fans are under the age of 35. A further 50% of that component is under the age of 18. They're not just looking at the content. We can tell by their active engagement with that content, commenting and sharing it and so on. They're actually, really engaging with this. This isn't a superficial throw it in the letterbox type mail out. It's an active, very active group. The last thing I wanted to share with you, and I think that if I could take 2 more minutes of your time, you will notice that the Australian Republican movement has rebranded their organisation. They know that component that I was talking about before of support for a republic is divided. They cannot, and that is the difference between now and 1999, they cannot tell you what sort of republic they want. So what they're doing is to spin that up and to say, we're going to go to the grassroots to give us a model. Now, I think that that deserves some laughter because it hasn't received it extensively in the media yet. But what I would like to point out to you is the way in which they've done this. They've taken the word republic out of their picture. Where once their website was republic.org.au, they're now ouridentity.org.au. There is a vague reference to the Australian Republican movement at the bottom, almost as a disclaimer. It's that on the nose. They now have this very attractive site, I must admit, which gives no detail, invites people to provide information, and that is about it. They have got nothing. And we've been pointing that out extensively in the media. So, ladies and gentlemen, Australians for Constitutional Monarchy is extremely active at the moment. The Republic, I can assure you, is off the agenda, but we remain a relevant and indeed, I think, necessary organisation. Thank you for your presence here today. A wonderful opportunity to reinvigorate the South Australian branch. I'm so delighted that you have strong leadership in this branch to see it through to a wonderful outcome. Thank you very much.